For the past 45 years, Aloha Stadium has played host to everything from football games to soccer matches, concerts, and monster truck rallies. But time has taken its toll, and the metal mecca has turned into a rust bucket. Plans are in the works to build a new, smaller stadium as part of an overall entertainment district. But as usual, the question remains, how will the state pay for it? Tonight's live broadcast and live stream of Insights on PBS Hawaii start now.
Aloha and welcome to Insights on PBS Hawaii. I'm Laura Yamada. Aloha Stadium in Halawa officially opened in 1975. Now, over the years, most Hawaii residents have attended an event there. Now, while it's known for hosting sporting events, there's also graduations, carnivals, the swap meet, and sold-out concerts. But rust has taken a toll on the 50,000-seater. A replacement plan includes a 35,000-seat stadium plus an entertainment district with shops, hotels, and housing. So how's that going to be paid for? That's the $350 million question tonight for our panel. We look forward to your participation in tonight's show. You can email, call, or tweet your questions, and you'll find a live stream of this program at pbshawaii.org and the PBS Hawaii Facebook page. All right, now to our guests. Ross Yamasaki is the chairman of the Stadium Authority. He was appointed to the board by Governor David Ige. The design strategist is a former University of Hawaii football player and holds a master's degree in architecture. Chris Kinimaka is the Public Works Administrator for the State Department of Accounting and General Services, or DAGS. She's served in that role for the past 21 years. The Public Works Division plans, coordinates, and controls a variety of engineering and architectural services for the state, including Aloha Stadium. Democratic State Senator Glenn Wakai is in his second term after previously serving in the State House. His district encompasses several neighborhoods, including Kalihi, Mapunapuna, Salt Lake, Foster Village, and Pearl Harbor. He is also the current chair of the Economic Development, Tourism, and Technology Committee. Chase Shigemasa is the chairman of the Aliamanu Salt Lake Foster Village Neighborhood Board. He holds various volunteer roles in the community and is also the chairman of the Citizens Advisory Committee of the Oahu Metropolitan Planning Organization. And Stephen Wood is serving as his second term on the Aiea Neighborhood Board. He moved to Hawaii in 2006 and has been living in Aiea for the past 5 years. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. I mean, I'll admit I'm looking forward to kind of getting up to speed on everything that's been happening with this. So let's start with this. And maybe Ross, we'll start with you on this one. We're going to just kind of rotate between all of you. A few months ago, debate happening on whether the current stadium, still to this day being debated, whether or not it should be repaired or the state should build a new one. So what is the status right now? Let's get your take.
Sure. The status is right now is that we are currently evaluating the structure and the maintenance and repair cost of the stadium itself. As you know, we came out with a report back, I believe, in 2017 requesting required funding for structural repairs. And we haven't had the opportunity to receive those fundings, so those have been deferred. Of course, I don't think it's rocket science to know that decay and corrosion exponentially increases with deferred maintenance. So I think it's safe to say that it's getting more and more deteriorated, especially in the last year and a half, where it's just sat and not being used, right?
And so maybe, Chris, we'll get your take on that too, but also wanted to ask you about the cost, get a little bit more insight on that. And anybody else who wants to add to a previous answer, feel free to do so as well as I kind of rotate through all of you. Estimated cost of the stadium, $350 million, excuse me. Now, is that just the stadium, or are we talking about the entertainment portion as well?
That is actually a portion of the stadium. The $350 million figure came out in 2017 when we did a planning study to actually determine whether it made more sense to renovate the stadium in its entirety or to start looking at demolition and replacement. At that time, we already knew that renovating the stadium to meet code and not even to make more improvements was going to be over $420 million. And then just a ballpark estimate for a new stadium was $350 million. Today, we know it's probably going to be roughly $423 million. So the $350 million is going to go to investment in improving not just the stadium, but the whole district. So that's where we're moving into a public-private partnership type of procurement, and that's probably more than you asked, but that is how we start to cover more of the costs for the stadium and address the burden that would be placed on the public.
So, Stephen and Chase, I want the two of you to jump in here, and maybe we'll start with you, Stephen, but kind of get your take on what's been happening and knowing that there's still some discussion between whether or not it should be repaired and whether or not we should be building a new one, and sort of where the cost really lies and where it may end up. Stephen, what's your take and with the community around you?
I mean, we see it as it's a very large cost, right? But my concern is that those costs get shifted maybe to contractors and other folks that are not here locally in Hawaii. So one of the things that at the last neighborhood board meeting I talked to Chris about, or asked Chris to look into, was if we could do small business set-asides that would benefit the community and the members of this community, rather than large corporations that might come in here and siphon those funds out of the local community here.
And Chase, what about you as far as where it stands right now and what's still being discussed? What are you seeing and with your community around you as far as what they support and what they have concerns with?
This development, this new Aloha Stadium Entertainment District, will really revitalize this area that has been kind of stagnant for a while, with only one venue, that being Aloha Stadium. This development concerns that we have as a neighborhood board, and we're very thankful that NASED and the DAGs and the state of Hawaii, the various departments have been working with our board and the Stadium Authority itself, coming to our board and speaking with the community at every single neighborhood board meeting. And that's what really it centers around. It centers around getting the community involved in the process. And that's what we're so thankful for. But one of the largest concerns that we have as a neighborhood board that we've mentioned in the past was infrastructure. With such a large development, we want to make sure that the infrastructure that's currently there is able to hold the capacity that we see coming into that area, and how we can address those ahead of time rather before construction.
And of course, Senator Wakai, we want to get to you, and no surprise, we've got some questions coming in that are going to sort of lead into this discussion too. But let's start with this. The change in House Bill 1348 right now indicate the financing would shift to obligation bonds instead of, say, revenue bonds, which my understanding is would put a bigger burden on taxpayers. So can you explain, sort of, help people understand what exactly that shift means and why the shift to obligation bonds?
Well, we had to shift to revenue bonds because right now we heard from Ross that the stadium just cannot host spectator events. So there is a revenue bond. If you put it out there, you have to pay it back in almost immediately. So because we don't have an opportunity in the next few years for the stadium to really generate revenues to cover the bond issuance, we have moved it over to general obligation bonds. And so, yes, the taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for that $350 million authorization that's out there. But I want to also convey to your viewers that this is the #1 job creator for the state of Hawaii in the next 3 or 4 years. And this is a public-private partnership. So the $350 million that we just spoke of is just the seed money. We fully expect in excess of $1 billion of private sector funds to match up with that. So to what Stephen was mentioning earlier about he doesn't want the public on the hook, well, you're going to be on the hook for $350 million, but I would gladly put up that kind of money if I'm going to get $2 billion in private funds that are going to build out the most dynamic and vibrant area in the state of Hawaii.
Do you want to jump in, Chris? Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that the $350 million in a public-private partnership, unlike your conventional design, bid, build, is that we can spend that $350 million over a span of 4 to 5 years after the stadium is already built, as opposed to standard construction where we have to have the money up front and you start paying from the time that the developer is even designing and building the stadium. So with that, we shift the burden of the $350 million to a later time. Hopefully our revenues are much better then, and our economic situation is better. And then you spread it out over several years. And that's also why we're coupling it with real estate development to help generate revenue to help offset taxpayers' burdens as well.
Yeah,
So
I would like to jump in real quick as well on
Stephen.
this. So when Chris is talking about the real estate development, there's been discussions within the community about the number of units that are going to be assigned, that are going to be planned for the area. We've had asks up to 15,000 units for ranging from low income to middle income to high income housing. I think what we're settling in on is around 2,000 to 5,000 units that will have that mix. With that coming in, there is a concern within the neighborhood about parking, about the infrastructure, about those kind of things that are going to get impacted by it.
Yeah, and Stephen, you're leading right into some of the viewer questions that I wanted to get into. One from Betty and Makiki asking about those housing units, wanting to kind of know too, not only how many units will there be, but how many will be for affordable housing. Has that been determined?
I don't know. I don't have.
I don't
the
know,
answer
Ross.
to
Maybe I don't know who might be more involved in some of the details.
I can jump
ahead,
in on
Chris.
that. The actual cross-section hasn't been determined yet. We want to partner with our developers to make sure we have something that's supportable and would provide opportunities for both affordable housing, but also not be a tremendous drain on the taxpayers as well, because very often affordable housing has to be subsidized to some extent. So we will be working with the developers to look at what makes the most sense for the area to provide both the community with housing and, again, not create a larger tax burden for everyone.
So looking at the design, one thing we looked at, we're like, did we see a lot of parking here? I'm not sure if we did, and sort of what's going to be the situation as far as traffic in the area. And this is a question from Henry. He says, there are existing complaints about noise, traffic, parking affecting the existing residents. Why are they going to make more noise, more traffic for residents when they cannot address the existing conflicts? And again, that's from Henry. So I don't know who wants to jump in on that one. Maybe share a little bit more about what was discussed, whether or not these concerns were addressed, and to what degree.
So I'll jump in first. So I've been working with Councilwoman Carol Fukunaga on an RPZ for this area, a restrictive parking zone. It's kind of similar to the situation that they had set up in Kalihi. This community is very concerned about parking. When there are stadium events, the parking in the Halawa area just fills up completely, and people park everywhere around here, and the residents here are highly concerned about that. So part of this plan going forward is something that I know that the community is going to request because of similar development activities that have occurred in the past. There will have to be some kind of parking solution going forward.
And Ross, I wanted you to jump in there too. I'm sorry, and also Senator Wakai. Why don't you go ahead first, Senator?
Part of the beauty of this project is that we have a rail stop there. And I don't understand why in Hawaii we're always so fixated on parking. The rail stop is right there. In addition, I think by the time we build the rail station, they're going to be autonomous vehicles. When I go to the games, I don't even drive. I take Uber. So there's going to be ride sharing. So this notion that somehow we have to replicate whatever parking is there in the future build out, I don't think we're going to need nearly as many parking spaces as people anticipate. So don't let parking be the...
What is the current timeline, by the way, as to what's the current projection right now as to when this project, or when the stadium would be complete, when people could go and enjoy the stadium?
Probably let Chris speak to that with regard to the process and an engagement with the shortlisted developers and how the procurement process is working, Chris?
Yeah, what's the
Yes.
projection right now, timeline-wise?
So I think everyone remembers when we thought we could hit 2023, and that was before we hit some of the problems we had with COVID-19 and, sorry, Senator, but not passing the bill the first go around. We now are looking at a more realistic schedule. And actually, we don't want to commit to a final date. I can say we're not going to hit 2023 for sure, but we're working with the developers to get a much more solid commitment before we announce a date, just to be much more responsible. And we are already meeting with them now. So we hope to know by the end of the year, for example, what's realistic.
And Senator Wakai, what is the current projection as far as when that rail station will be complete and up and running? What's the timing like there? What's it looking like at this point, if you could make a projection?
I'm so sorry. I don't have jurisdiction over the rail station, but we're hoping that it provides us the transportation mode that we need to see this area successful. But I don't want to answer for the city on that.
I think in our last, no, I can answer that. I think in our last board meeting, they had, Hart had told us that the rail station, original idea that the first rail station stop would be at the stadium is getting delayed because some of the infrastructure issues they have with the track. And they said maybe about a year or so. And the fact that we got COVID and there's no real events to draw the train there to unload, is part of the issue too. But we've been in discussion with the mayor and with Hart, and we work with him closely. If I could answer that previous question you had, Lara, about the planning and the parking and the issue, I think the idea of how to accommodate the mission of the stadium and the stadium authority with regard to providing the people of the state a large-scale venue, a gathering space, has changed over 45 years, where the solution when it was built was a stadium with a sea of parking. That's how you address going to these big venues. Now, if you look around the country, you look around the nation, you look around the world, all of these mixed-use development districts are popping up. You can go to Staples Center, you can go to in Atlanta, in SunTrust Park, and what that's doing is providing a place, a sense of place with multimodal transportation access, and it actually diffuses the timing on the access as well. So think about how we do the games now, and I would say that mode of providing that service is kind of outdated. You got a 7 o'clock game, then everybody rushes in, and it starts trickling in from 3 o'clock, and then you got that mass rush, so you got all of the traffic jam. And then you got the game, and then right after the game, everybody gets in their car, and then you got a traffic jam going out.
Sure.
If you had hotel use, and you had commercial use, and you had retail, and you had bars, and you had community spaces, chances are that first of all, there'd be, the thing that really, really excites me about this project and this idea of the district, the availability to have hotels there as well, is that it really allows the stadium authority to expand its reach to its mission. Neighbor Islanders can get off an airplane, get on the airport station, go 2 stops down, get off, get into a hotel. Little league teams, or Pop Warner teams, or other high school teams who want to compete can come and stay on property, where there'll be restaurants and other venues to have. So if you understand how people move around on the site, I suspect that there won't be as much of a problem because you're having a little bit more critical mass and gravity on the site itself. So moving in and out would be dispersed.
And no doubt there will be continued efforts to convince others that is going to be the case, because we have some of the questions coming in. Jeff, for example, asking if the stadium area is going to be built out as a multi-use entertainment center, how is the increase in vehicle traffic going to be managed? How will the few one-lane entrance and exit ramps on and off the highways from the stadium handle all the increased vehicle traffic? So what I'm hearing from some of you in part is that we have to look at this in a multi-layered kind of way, as far as how other things are going to be changing and hopefully mitigating some of that traffic. Chase, I want to turn to you. Do you feel like hearing these discussions, and no doubt you've heard the many other discussions over the years, talking to your constituents about how these plans are rolling out? Are they convinced? Are they feeling good about how the plans are playing out and the development is being discussed at this point in time? What's the sense you're getting from your constituents?
Well, traffic is a major concern for our residents and continues to still be a concern that we have. Our community and our neighborhood board has been very active with all the meetings and community outreach that the Stadium Authority and the Department of Accounting and General Service is offering to the community as they progress with this project. And we've made multiple suggestions and concerns about possibilities of making a new stadium, on-ramp, either westbound or eastbound, closer to the properties. And we've talked about that. We've made this suggestion in the past. And looking at the EIS, and it really captures what the community is asking for and looking for. Although right now we're just talking about it. We're really just coming to the table, and the role that I feel that I play as the chair of the neighborhood board is to be that conduit for the community to the stakeholders, to make sure that they have a seat at the table. And this will be a continuous concern that we have, and a continuous concern that we're going to make sure that as we move forward, although looking at multimodal transportation, I really like what Ross and Senator Wakai touched upon. This is revitalizing our economy. Now, not only is this stadium development a great thing to revitalize the economy in this specific area of our district, but also that it's in a transit-oriented district, which means that they can make use of policies that were put in place in TLD districts around every single rail station. And so it gives leverage for the community to ensure that whatever development is taking place there, that we're at the table and we're ensured that the community voices are being heard. And that's what I really appreciate from all the stakeholders and even our senator.
So I think that some of the viewers maybe hadn't been at the table or hearing as much of the details in some of these discussions. So asking about alternate locations, Chris and Makiki wanting to know why places like Barbers Point wasn't considered. Marcus in Makiki also wondering about alternative locations in town, Sand Island. Chris, do you want to tackle that one first?
Yes, the very first thing we did when we started planning for a new stadium was do a thorough site selection study. And we covered the entire island. So everything from the Kalailoa area, West Oahu area, even Kapiolani Park and Sand Island. And when we looked at all the infrastructure, the costs, and the location impacts, we still ended up with the stadium coming far above and ahead of any other location. And that included, for example, the University of Hawaii. So we have the central location with access for transportation. We have the TOD, we have the space and the appropriate type of density to support this type of entertainment district. So we do have that actually on our website, so people can check that study out. So this wasn't just a random build it where it is. We did do our homework to make sure it remains the best location for the state of Hawaii.
And same thing, Senator Wakai, did you want to respond to that as well, as far as I'm sure you heard discussions from a lot of folks as to why can't it be in a different area? Why not an area where maybe there might not be as many traffic issues? What's your response to that?
We have to stop being impediments to progress. As Chris mentioned, this was studied, and those people who have different views should have had their views vetted years ago, but we went through numerous consultants and that spot was found as the best spot. So instead of talking about why not this and try to distract, we should just figure out how we're going to make this place as dynamic as possible. And it's the best spot. I mean, it's the center point for the H3, right? The women could easily get access, the Hawaii Kai people, the Waianae people, Mililani people. That is the most central location for access to the stadium. And if you don't mind, I want to go back to something what Ross was talking about with this connection with tourism. What we fail to also realize is that the #2 visitor attraction in the state of Hawaii is right across the street, the Arizona Memorial. And what happens to those 1.8 million people? They look at the memorial, they get on a bus, and they leave. We have a ready-made audience right there to be entertained, to eat, to shop, to really have economic opportunities, but we don't even capitalize on the fact that we have that power there with a cadre of customers that we should really be paying attention to. So the stadium at that one location makes so much sense on so many different fronts. And really, we should be having a discussion on how do we make this something that is going to be dynamic for the community rather than having these distractions of it should be someplace else. That train has left the barn already.
Stephen, I think you wanted to respond?
Yeah, so I got a couple things. I've hosted town hall meetings in this area, and also talked to residents just walking around. Right. I mean, Chris can be aware that she attends our IA neighborhood board meetings, and knows I'm pretty active. So there are a couple concerns that have been brought up. Okay, specifically what has been talked about here, and one is the transient community coming in. Right. The community here is very concerned about that impact of transient personnel or people coming into this community or living beside it. The hotels are a prime example of their concern. It's a working class community here, and middle class, working class community, and they're really concerned about hundreds and thousands of outsiders frequenting the neighborhood on a regular basis going forward. So there is that piece of it. Now nothing is insurmountable, right? I mean, we can find solutions to pretty much anything as far as I'm concerned. And going back to the parking issue is if you actually live in this community and you look at the stadium, people are tailgating over there. They're there with their ohana, having a party before the big game. That's going to continue. Okay, and it's not going to stop unless there isn't any parking, period. But if there is any kind of parking like that, that's what's going to happen. So I think if we give it the right attention going forward, if we make it a priority going forward, then we will solve that issue, and it won't be an issue for our community here. About a year and a half ago, okay, when the preliminary drawings were coming out and Chris started attending, and maybe 2 years ago when Chris started attending the IA neighborhood board meetings and briefing us, there was an on-ramp solution to the H1, okay, that would result in probably a lessened traffic issue. I haven't seen that in the most recent renderings, so I don't know if that got taken out or not, but that would, if we could reinstate something like that, I think that would definitely support some of the traffic issues or lessen the traffic issues that we have.
See, I know that everybody's getting used to technology now because they're using the electronic hands to indicate that they want to share something. So I do need to get to some other questions, but briefly, if you can, I think Chris and Chance both wanted to share a few thoughts, but briefly, you don't mind, so I can move on to some questions.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Chase.
I wanted to just mention that I think we have to move away from the mindset of not in my community. I think that's a lot that happens every single day here in Hawaii. I don't want this because I don't want it in my community. So how do we actually look at it as a different perspective? Like in every single community, we have working class. Every single community is a working class community, and I think that we have to kind of take a look outside of the lens and think about it that way in that perspective. This project is underway. How do we get involved, get us to the table, and make sure our concerns are addressed that way? We rather than to try to push the project back anymore. I think that's what we have to do with our community, and I welcome every single community member to come to our neighborhood board meetings. We talk about this every single month. And so, I welcome everybody. If you want to get engaged, let's push for public policies driven by community engagement. Thank you.
And speaking about what the public wants, we've got two questions here asking about tailgating. People are very concerned and they're not going to be able to tailgate once things change. I don't know, maybe Chris, I know you had your hand up too, maybe for the previous question, but can you alleviate some concerns about tailgating opportunities?
Yeah, I'll try to capture all the things we want to say in one point. So the number one point is to come out, like Chase said, because we have been putting out programmatic master plans. We're developing them as we go. And the most important thing we want to share is the whole point of this is to create a live, work, play, and thrive community. We're not just taking the parking and packing it with hotels. You're not going to have transients flowing through the whole area. What we're creating now is taking an open parking lot and creating a grid, an access with streets and thoroughfares, community spaces, residential spaces. So now the entire 98 acres is going to be something that belongs to the community, that is accessible 24/7, 365 days a year. So you're not going to have fences with gates that people enter and exit. So you're going to have people living there, and people visiting, they'll go to the places that are retail and hotel, but they're not going to be staying in the apartments, and the actual traffic issue is being addressed by that grid. So in our master plans, we show now, instead of people backing up on Kohoapa'ani, for example, or Salt Lake Boulevard, we have patterns where people get immediately off the freeway and onto the site. And then from there, they can be funneled into parking spaces. So we are looking at very innovative ways of permeating that asphalt jungle and creating something that's much more dynamic for the community.
And you kind of addressed, I need to move on to some questions here because I've got a whole stack building up. So I don't want to make sure that we honor our viewers and their questions. You somewhat addressed Rebecca's question here. She was asking about other opportunities, innovative jobs such as the robotics industry, places where people can live, work, and play. So I see you nodding your head there that those are all being part of the discussion. I did want to also get into what some people who are not near a rail station wondering how they're going to get to the stadium, people asking if there's going to be opportunities that are tied to this plan and this project, whether it be through Uber or what might be some. They want to know what might be some other opportunities for folks who are not on that rail line to be able to get to the stadium. Maybe Senator Wakai, or I don't know who wanted to address that first.
Well, a big component of this stadium district is going to be housing. So how about you just live next to the stadium? I mean, that's a big opportunity for people to get access to it. And, back to Chris Kinimaka's commentary about tailgating. Yes, of course, we all love tailgating. But think about how it is now. It's all kind of kapakahi, right? You open up your back trunk and whatever section of the stadium you're parked in, you can start tailgating. That's like, we have to manage it better so that we have maybe a section for tailgating, and maybe you pay a little bit more for it, that privilege. And if you just really going to go to the game and jump out of your car, we put you in a different area. But right now, just any kind, all over the place, do whatever you want, pull your hibachi out wherever you want. We got to manage it better. So I think that will kind of free up real estate, give people the opportunity to tailgate as they have in the past, but not make it all over the place.
Also, folks asking about carnivals. Still an opportunity for carnivals there. Trying to make sure that I get to everybody's question. I see heads nodding. Okay, so here's a question from Jim. He's changing I think your answer a little bit. He was asking about, okay, you're looking at that as an area where people would go and stay at a hotel, but he's kind of pushing the point a little bit and saying, hey, well, there are no beaches there. How confident are you that that one other attraction is going to be enough to really create a destination there for not only locals but tourists?
If anybody's been to,
Go ahead,
Senator.
if anybody's been to LA Live in Los Angeles, that's nowhere near an ocean, but there are plenty of hotels around there. I mean, you can go watch the Lakers play, you can go ice skating, you can go watch the Academy Awards, you can go to the music museums. I mean, there's so much to do. So I guarantee you that, it's not like at the doorstep of a beach, but with the place becoming a true entertainment district, there's going to be a lot of reasons for a tourist and a local to want to live and stay in that area.
And Chris, I know you wanted to jump in, Stephen too, but we haven't heard from Ross in a little bit, and I know that you wanted to jump in as well and respond.
So very quickly.
Go ahead, Ross.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chris. You go first.
Go ahead, Ross. I know we haven't heard from you. I know you're very involved in a lot of these plans.
Well, I think, as Chris mentioned, there's a lot of information on our website. And on our website, you'll see that there have been numerous studies with regard to market studies on the capability of the market, what kind of attractions or what kind of uses can be on the site and to what level. And I might be corrected, but when we were looking at the hotel, we're not talking about a 5-star resort hotel. We're talking hotels. And if you look recently at some of the hotels that came up in Kapolei, they're extremely successful. There's a lot of business that goes on at Pearl Harbor. There's a lot of work in that area, and there is no accommodations. So the market studies that we had initially engaged on shows that there is room for hotels there. So that's what the basis is for.
And Ross, continue on here a little bit. What's happening with the swap meet? People definitely want to know what the plans are for that.
Well, swap meet has always been an important part of the stadium and the community, and we have engaged them in every process. The stadium authority, I've got to give props out to TOD and the city and county and their TOD program too, because they were working on a TOD plan, and the stadium authority was actively involved in that. And so the plans have all merged together and are consistent. And I think that's a wonderful thing. You don't necessarily see that every day, especially with regard to the city and their planning and the state and our side for such a large property. But I think that's where I think the neighborhood folks can agree. There's been a lot of engagement over a long period of time to drive this. And that's where all of the input has come in, as far as even the mix and what types of buildings. And I just make one more note. We're trying to create one space, one venue, one sense of place for the whole state. And that's why it's a sports entertainment district. We're not trying to create another Waikiki. We're not trying to create another Kapalua. We're not trying, they have those areas in all the islands. What we don't have is a big stadium venue and a sports entertainment district in a community that has access to all of the islands and is central to Oahu. So I think that's part of something that we should understand.
And I'm so sorry, just to clarify, so were you saying that the swap meet is part of the future plans?
Yes.
Yeah, we've engaged them in every, sorry, long-winded answer, but they've been engaged the entire time, and they're part of the program that the developers are looking at as far as some of the objectives moving forward. Same thing like tailgating. How swap meet gets executed might be different, so the solution might be different, but they are definitely part of the stakeholder group that's considered in the future planning.
Stephen, go ahead. I see your hand up there.
So I want to go back to the bus question. I know it was a while back, but on the IA neighborhood board, we have been actively engaged on providing or getting the city to update their bus routes that will funnel into the station, the rail station here at the stadium. So we are addressing that on the neighborhood board, and that will hopefully answer that question. When it comes to the hotels, I asked this at the last neighborhood board meeting about the hotels, about what type of hotel would be in there, because we do not, at least from what the citizens here in Halawa and Halawa Heights have stated, do not want like a resort hotel located here. A working class hotel, would be more beneficial. Now, understand that it more likely also will not just be used by tourists, but by the military as well. I'm an operations manager for the U.S. Air Force. And so whenever we have guests come in, they usually stay at the Hawaiian Hilton Village and drive up to either Camp Smith or Fort Shafter or Schofield Barracks. So this actually, hotels here would more likely be used by Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, along with any of the other surrounding military communities.
So just to, I just got a question in that actually relates to that from Matthew, and he's kind of sharing his experience of driving to the stadium using Uber or Lyft. And he said the pickup at a large event is a big, big hassle, especially at Aloha Stadium. Maybe just some food for thought as you guys continue on with the planning. He said lanes are closed, traffic is crazy, police are urging you to move on. So it's really not friendly to, it sounds like, according to Matthew's experience, to these Uber drivers or Lyft drivers or others who are trying to provide an alternative. So I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that specifically or make sure that that is part of the conversation so that it is being looked at from the user's perspective.
I have a first-hand experience. I was an Uber driver for about 3 years, 2 years ago. And so I had to do pickups there, and it was hard. It was hard to find the person that you're looking for. I mean, you got thousands of people, and you're looking for just one person or one group to pick up. But I think what we have to look at, though, is the future. If this project is a community-driven design project, hey, rideshare, let's make sure we're involved in the conversation, saying we need to have specific areas for rideshare. As this is going to be a multimodal in development, we have to look at that as well. And so this is why Matthew, come on over to our board meeting. Let's get the conversation started. I also wanted to talk about bus routes. We've been really involved in the conversation as a community, the Alimane Salt Lake Foster Village Airport Neighborhood Board. We originally were supposed to get the rail through our community, but the rail is staying on the highway. And so in those discussions, the executive director at that time of HART had explained to us that the bus routes will serve sort of as the ribs, and the rail is the spine. So the rail's the spine, bus routes are the ribs. But when we talk about updating bus routes, I think if we start updating bus routes today, it's a little premature. We don't want to have routes that we're running and wasting taxpayer money, but definitely the conversation, having that conversation with the community. I'm so sorry, but I also wanted to talk about tailgating. So tailgating,
Quickly.
Amphitheater. I know there's a lot we talked about, and I want to just make sure,
Quickly. Yeah.
I've been to the meetings. The amphitheater idea for tailgating, it kind of changes like how you look at tailgating. Now you don't have to worry about your children running around the parking lot. You can actually have an opportunity where your children are running on the grassy area while you're watching the football game or getting ready to go in.
I need to move on to some other questions. So I'm so sorry, Chase.
Can I jump in real quick?
I need to move on to some other questions. I'm so sorry. We've got about 15 minutes left. So please, and I know, Chris, I think you have probably able to respond to just about every question I've asked, and so I want to give you a chance to. But let me shift a little bit here. I just want to make sure I address this because Elle was noticing that there isn't any UH representation on this panel, and I just wanted to be clear with our viewers that we did indeed extend and ask out to UH to have a representative here, and they declined. But I do want to talk about that a little bit as far as the relationship right now with the University of Hawaii, them being possibly a main tenant, and also maybe building this stadium to accommodate the UH football team to a degree. So talk about that relationship. Maybe Senator Wakai, if you don't mind starting with you, and then maybe Chris. Sort of where does that stand right now, and what is the perspective as how that relationship is going to move forward based on the current plans and the current arrangements with UH?
UH has been the #1 tenant for 46 years. They played there for the entirety of the stadium's existence. But keep in mind, the University of Hawaii is not the largest tenant there. They utilize that facility for 6 days out of the year. As Ross was mentioning, it's really the stadium and the swap meet that is the biggest revenue generator for the stadium. So it's not the University of Hawaii. So they are certainly going to be an important part of figuring out how the stadium itself functions, not maybe so much on the development district outside of it.
Did you say 6 days or 6 months, by the way? Sorry. I think you said 6 days.
Yes, they only have 6 football games at the stadium.
Okay, just clarifying.
Yep. And maybe if they're good, they'll have a 7th game at the Hawaii Bowl. But UH is not the main user of that stadium. Important user, but not the main user. I'm not too sure if they should be driving the entire development of the district. They should have a say, but not a dominant say in how this comes together.
And Chris, did you want to jump in? As far as the relationship with UH and sort of where that stands right now and how they're going to partner with this project.
Well, I think certainly for us, when we start talking about the stadium venue, the first thing we have to ask is what is required in the stadium. So we're definitely including all of their requirements as an NCAA team with anything that would support them to be successful in our arena, our entertainment venue, just as we are the other stakeholders, for example, professional soccer or rugby. So that is the broad picture of our stadium. We've always been supportive of our local events and our local athletes. So UH will always be one of the key stakeholders that we work with, but certainly, as Senator Wakai said, not the only stakeholder, because we do have many that just fill the stadium and all of our events throughout the year.
So is there any concern then right now, because the university is trying to raise, $8 million or so to retrofit its campus to host fans at a location there on campus. So if that happens and that turns out to be a success, which of course everybody would want it to be, and they decide that that's going to be the location, do you have any concerns that that will then take away from attendance at the new stadium?
I think, Ross, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'll answer that question too. We've always had a really, really good relationship with the University of Hawaii. I mean, myself personally, I think we're always going to consider University of Hawaii. When we look at the development of the stadium and where it wants to go, we always have them top of mind. And we continue to approach the project that when this is complete, this will be the best venue for them to play in for many, many, many reasons. The comment I was going to make, and you asked the economic question right off the bat, and I don't know if a lot of viewers out there, the general public, know that the stadium and the Stadium Authority is a special funded program. Basically, we eat what we kill. So we need to generate enough revenue to sustain our operations. And a lot of people don't understand that. And for basically until COVID came, for the most part of 45 years, we've been self-sustainable. The big vision for this whole district is to have a self-sustaining community benefit. When you ask who's going to pay for it, ultimately the taxpayers always pay for everything. This is a community benefit. Supporting the university is going to be a community benefit. Supporting places where community and agencies and high schools can come and have graduation, it's going to always, it's going to be paid for by the taxpayers. This is just a different approach on how we're going to pay for it. And that's why we're looking at the revenue generation.
Ross, or Stephen, I'll get to you in just a minute, but I just wanted to follow up, Ross, since you mentioned the Stadium Authority, and I don't know if this is a better question for you or for Senator Wakai, but two bills in the legislature right now, I understand, attempting to transfer development powers to the Stadium Authority. Who controls the power now, and should it be handed over to the Stadium Authority?
The Stadium Authority right now is just a manager of a facility. The bill that you're speaking of will actually empower them to be a developer of not just a stadium, which would be the crown jewel of that area, but the entire 98 acres there. So that's why the bill that is still being contemplated and will be voted on tomorrow is super important, because it sets up the framework for how this place is going to be envisioned in the future. So we're giving to Ross and his fellow board members a huge responsibility for developing the stadium and bringing in revenues and really turning it into a really dynamic district instead of just being a facility manager, which he currently is.
Stephen, I'm sorry. I don't know if we moved past what you wanted to respond to, but I saw your hands up there.
So I want to talk about the stadium, actually. So currently right now, the seating is around 70,000. And I think the current plan going forward is going to be about half of that, about 35,000. And then it's also going to be set back from the current location it's at, closer to the H201. That actually works into the benefit of the neighborhood here in terms of the noise levels and things like that, my constituents have had an issue with up until this point. And that's all I wanted to say.
So I need to get to what a number of related similar questions, and I'm sure this would not surprise any of you at all, as far as people being concerned now more than ever with what's happening with the pandemic, whether or not this is the right time to be paying for something like this. I should say, especially because of what's happening with the pandemic. And then also people having concerns about the over budget with the rail and what's happening there. So, how might you address that? I don't know who wants to jump in there first. Maybe Chris, we haven't heard you for a little bit, but we have Joe, we have Julie, we have Moses, all asking questions about, in light of what's happened, especially in the past year and a half, and also in light of what's happened with the rail project and being so far over budget and so past this time, as far as timeline. Should we be reconsidering at this point in time? Have enough things changed, dramatically changed, that maybe we should be reconsidering whether or not this is the right time?
I think one of the biggest things we can jump on this, and Chase talked about this earlier, is this project is more than just building a stadium. The minute we start moving ahead with the progress, we'll start to create jobs, and you'll have jobs with people doing the planning and the design. You'll have jobs certainly with the construction, starting with the stadium, but flowing throughout the entire development of the real estate portion. And then from there, you start getting into the service and skilled jobs that go with managing and running an entire district. So this opportunity is an infusion to support all the people in Hawaii with more jobs and opportunities. And when we start to develop the property, we are including concepts such as perhaps small business support or incubator support, or ways for the community to become educated and engaged, and again, live, work, play, and thrive. So this is more than just building a stadium that's going to sit there and require maintenance. It's about bringing vitality and redevelopment to the community and really bringing partnership with the outlying areas and bringing more resources for the people of Hawaii. It's really an opportunity for jobs and betterment.
COVID has left us and kind of compelled us to be at home, but eventually we're going to go back to gathering and enjoying entertainment in the future. And somehow people think that this is going to be Rail 2.0, over budget and delayed. That's why we are embracing PPP with this particular project, because it's not going to be Rail 2.0. The problem with Rail, part of it is because it's 100% taxpayer funded, 100% bureaucratic run. The Aloha Stadium Development District is going to be a completely different approach to development, where we're going to have private sector money, private sector timelines, and private sector expectations, which will make all of us proud. This is not going to be your grandpa's rail station.
I think as a taxpayer, we have to kind of take a step back and say, do we wait now and try again 10 years from now, and the 10-year cost inflation goes up, and then now we have to spend even more taxpayer dollars? We have to get not 350, but maybe now we need 550 general obligation bonds, a million obligation bonds. So it's when is too much time to wait? You know, that's I think a question that as a taxpayer that I have. You know, are we going to delay it any longer? We've already seen that it being delayed just 1 year. Costs have inflated.
Okay, so I want to get a question in by Patty. And she's asking about current ticket holders. What's going to be this? I don't know if you guys have discussed this yet. What's going to be the situation with current ticket holders? And also asking about, are the prices going to go way up? Are we going to be able to afford it once the stadium is finally open? Maybe Chris?
Go ahead,
Ross.
I'll take a shot. I mean, I think with regard to ticket holders, that's primarily UH. All of the ticket holders with regard to UH, if she's a UH fan, that's all on UH. We don't handle that. But interestingly enough, there are, in the models that we look at, when you look at where developments are coming up, different models for engaging ticket holders, stakeholders. Well, it's first right of refusal on blocks of seats, ownerships of boxes and luxury boxes. So seat types, ticket types are all in the mix right now. And that's why we want to engage the private sector, because they're the experts. They know what's going on. They know what the demand is. And we can make that investment and find a way. Again, if we can drive to a sustainable community benefit, that would be a great thing. So that's the hope. And that's the goal.
And both Stephen and Chase have talked about how, you know, this is the time still for people to get engaged, to come to those community meetings, to hear the discussions as they continue on. So maybe, Chris, I want to turn it to you and ask, so as we move forward now, as this starts to kind of ramp up again, what are you most focused on, and what do people need to be most focused on to understand and engage in the process?
Well, we are still working on finishing our environmental impact statement. The final EIS has to come out. So we're digesting and addressing all of the comments that have come in. We are planning continued community engagement along those lines. And the master plans are getting developed. We're also engaging with the stadium developers and the real estate developers. And we are committed to ensuring that this tight community relationship continues. So a lot of our initiative is getting everybody on board and making sure we have this terrific network set up to allow for this continued teamwork to provide this district. So our focus, besides just getting procurement done, is just making sure we do right by the community.
And we're about out of time. We maybe got about 20 seconds left for Senator Wakai, and Stephen and Chase. I wanted to give you a couple seconds too. So Senator Wakai, maybe about 20 seconds to you, your thoughts as to what you want to make sure that people pay attention to right now to get the information they need.
Help us make this stadium something that we're all proud of. And I think we have set up the mechanism for it to be the most dynamic, the most vibrant, the most exciting place in Hawaii. So if we have that view, then let's make that happen, rather than be detractors and saying why it should be someplace else, complaining about parking. We're going to work all of those things out in the future. Let's have a positive view on how this is going forward.
And same, we'll start with you, Stephen, and then to you, Chase, about 20 seconds each. What you want people to focus on now, make sure they ask the questions they need to be asking as we move forward.
Yeah, I don't want to convey that we're not excited as a community about seeing this happen. The community here is very excited about it. However, we do have our reservations about things that have been issues in the past, which is the parking, the noise, housing, impacts all of us, right? We also, the costs, right? We need to make sure that that money is being spent well, and it's being spent locally, right? So that local jobs
All
are
right.
created. So that's
I want to
all
make
I'm.
sure I give
Thank you.
Chase 20 seconds there. Go ahead, Chase.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, Laura, and PBS Hawaii for this opportunity. I'd like to just put in a plug for our neighborhood board. Alimanu Salt Lake Foster Village Airport Neighborhood Board continuously talks about this issue. Our next meeting is on May 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. You can go to honolulu.gov/SEO.
He got the plug in. I'm going to have to wrap it up.
Join the conversation. Get
Thank you. I
involved.
appreciate
The
all of your
community is
enthusiasm. Thank you,
ready.
Chase. I need to wrap it up. Mahalo to all of you for joining us tonight. And we thank our guests, Chairman of the Stadium Authority, Ross Yamasaki, Public Works Administrator Chris Kinimaka, State Senator Glenn Wakai, Chair of the Aliamanu Salt Lake Foster Village Neighborhood Board, Chase Shigemasa, and Ai'eha Neighborhood Board member Stephen Wood. Thank you for a lively discussion, all of you. All right, next week on Insights, the unresolved issues of another mass government project, Honolulu's rail system. It's not only massively over budget right now, but the completion date continues to be pushed back. We're going to hear from some key players on how to move forward. Please join us then. I'm Laurie Yamada on Insights for PBS Hawaii. Hui ho.